Right, morning, morning. So Lee, why do we have to do this? I don't know. It's yeah. What are we talking 4IR? It's all Umpulela's fault this morning again. So what is it? What are we? What do we use it for? Why do we use it? Do we need to use it? Do we even need it? I don't know. I think Ed doesn't want any of it. So he prefers his tent in the wilderness with no technology at all. So
I'll come and join him.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. It'll never be the same again.
Ed, I'll teach you to dance at the same time.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
So there's a challenge, and definitely 4IR can't solve that one for you, Ed. So Lee, yeah, 4IR in our personal capacities. What is it all about?
Thanks, Ivan. Taking up the challenge that Mpumelelo set for us to say, well, we've spoken about 4IR in general, but what does it mean for us as individuals and in our businesses? How do we actually apply it? And so I'll just tell my own story. So I wrote the article that I was quoting from as part of our discussion. I wrote sort of towards the beginning of last year with Trevor Kettler, and we were going to do some work in the 4IR space. And I said to him, if we're going to be offering, so we were looking at what are the skills, the soft skills or the human skills that you would need if you were going to be working with 4IR technology. And the World Economic Forum has some very succinct and wonderful ways of saying there's some core skills that we as humans would need in order to adjust and to work well and make the most of this technology. But it made me realize that we can't just speak into it if we weren't ourselves as a training organization actually implementing some of these technologies. So I did some research around in the training and development field specifically. So my field, my industry, what's happening from a 4IR perspective. So there were a couple of things that came out for me. The one is I discovered what they call micro-learning, which is drip feeding small pieces of information at regular places or just in time learning. So people can access it as and when they want. And I discovered a couple of micro-learning apps. And the one that we use at Wisdoms is called Talent Cards. And so it's a lovely little, I say little, but it's actually it gives you cards that you can, and you can access it getting short, and that's the point about micro-learning is it's short, sharp, refresher, building up. So it doesn't replace the input that you're giving or the facilitation process, but it enhances it and keeps it going. The other thing that I explored was virtual reality. And I do a lot of negotiation training. And what I was looking for is there something in that is in the field of virtual reality that we could construct a role play or a scenario that people could do a negotiation based on the scenario that is being played out through the virtual reality. So what I discovered is certainly in South Africa, that level of virtual reality doesn't exist yet. I went to 2 places in Johannesburg that offer virtual reality opportunities, but they're mainly games or team building exercises. And it's a lot more complicated than you think to set up this virtual reality environment with all, there's all kinds of points and even setting it up in a corporate, which has happened. They have done this, the one guy I spoke to, they've done corporate training using these, the virtual reality environment, but it is an expensive exercise, certainly. So again, it's just an example of, yes, the technology is there, but it's not quite in place. And then there's sort of not new technology, but certainly stuff that I had to learn. Things like Canva. Oh, I tell you the other thing that, and I'll just end with this. There was another technology that I found, and again, I'd seen it before, and that is audience participation software, where you could, in live terms, you could set up a poll question, and then people could, at one, they had sort of buzzers or little walkie-talkies. I don't know, I'm not describing it very well, but certainly an instrument where you could put in yes or no, or whatever it was, and then your answer to that question would come up on the screen. But it was a plug-in, a literal physical hardware plug-in into your laptop. And then I discovered that there are apps for that. And so there's software, free software that you can trial that works perfectly fine up to a certain level. And so I trialed that in one of the Wisdom's programs. And while there were some limitations, it still worked really well. So those are some of the things that I've done in the 4IR space, which I hope answers Mpumelela's question. And I'd love to just hear some of the things that you've either applied or have discovered in some of the research that you've done.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, what is truly 4IR technology and what is just technology that's simply become pervasive in our lives, you know. So the question is, Mpumelelo, is Siri or Alexa your best friend, or you just chat to Google every now and again? So I think you got to work out where the line is, where the line starts and where it ends, and it's fascinating, you know. I mean, Trevor talks about you know, we have more access, or no, I'll have to ask him how he says it, but I think we are wealthier than we have ever been in terms of knowledge and information and access to knowledge and information. And, you know, I just think of my gardener, you know, he walks around the garden with his smartphone in his pocket and listens to the news and engages with his clients on WhatsApp, you know, and this is somebody at the level of a gardener, and our domestic help, his 2.5-year-old, is doing all his learning on the smartphone at home. You know, so these levels of access have become incredibly available and affordable, even at those lowest levels of the economic, you know, stratas in the country. So it's very interesting to work out, Ed, what's good or bad technology, but we'll ask Mpumelelo first.
Well, I guess in this case, well, good morning to everyone. I guess in this case, it wasn't so much what's good or bad technology, but more the question, what are the opportunities in the first place? Because if we don't know what these technologies are creating as opportunities, then we're not in a position to access or exploit those opportunities. So what I've done, and I'll try to go through it quickly on my side, is just looked at 2 of them. So I've looked at 3D printing, and then I looked at artificial intelligence with the same question that says, what are the opportunities for small businesses there? So with 3D printing, obviously the biggest impact with it, it's largely in manufacturing, and the industries that were highlighted the most was that medical industry, automotive industry, and to a certain extent architecture. And I see Herman and Master not here as well, but apparently it's also going to impact agriculture a lot as well. So anyone who is within those industries, it probably would be of great exercise to look closely as to how exactly does 3D printing, what opportunities does it create in that space. But the future of 3D printing as well is it's moving from prototyping, which is what it generally does a lot at the moment, to mass production. There is some mass production that's happening to a certain extent, but the idea is to move it more into that. So what that means is that it creates opportunities for small businesses that you can manufacture small things at mass production and produce them in numbers. It will be a matter of what would you be interested in manufacturing that you think you can sell and make money out of that. So the opportunities I picked up definitely leave for education space, training programs. Every one of these technologies is creating a big opportunity within that space, because then people have to learn the technology, they have to learn how to use it, they have to learn how it works. And also then maintenance comes in, except though that for 3D printing, maintenance is going to be much less than the currently existing manufacturing processes. So that opportunity is not going to be that big. But there's opportunities in dental, in the dental market for 3D printing. And for the IT guys is obviously the integration of the machinery, integration of software and the machinery, meaning design and engineering. So it looks like Ivan and Lee are potentially big winners when it comes to this space. For small businesses, again, the big thing that's highlighted as an opportunity is that you can prototype your marketing material and give a different experience to your clients about what you're trying to sell to them, if it's an idea or even if it is a physical product. Let me go past that one quickly. Obviously, AI is a bit more pervasive than that. It affects a lot of things. So I've tried to just look at what does it mean for small businesses. But the prediction is that they're wanting to move it from weak AI to strong AI. What that means is that currently AI looks at a narrow task, for instance, how to play chess, and it ends there. But they're moving it towards it doing more than just one task. And currently AI in the one narrow task is doing better than human beings. And in the strong AI where it's going to do multiple tasks, they are thinking that even at that, it's going to supersede what human beings are able to do. Opportunities for small businesses, they are mostly in CRM, where you can improve your sales and marketing, because AI will help you to analyze the data and see how you then change your lead generation to be in line with what's happening online when it comes to your clients. Automate customer communication, that's with a chatbot. So what that means is that you have a 24/7 salesperson even when you're sleeping, because somebody somewhere in the world can go in there and chat with the bot. Those are some of the opportunities. But it also helps with HR tasks, for instance, hiring and onboarding. I had read a lot around that one. I had a difficulty a little bit because Google uses that a lot. And because of how the algorithm was done, it started to only pick up certain type of people as the only ones that are capable and are correct for Google, only to find that all of a sudden they're having the same type of people. But it can help you to go through thousands and thousands of CVs to decide who you're hiring and onboarding them as well. Last but not least, and a little bit scary, it can help you acquire competitive intelligence. There's currently a tool called Crayon. What it does, it follows everything, every footprint of your competitor online, whatever they're doing, and then it pulls it together for you as a report so that you can understand what their strategies are and how then you can use that to strategize differently from them or to counter their actions. But yes, it is a scary one. Those are the opportunities I've picked up so far. I'm hoping they're helpful to bring down to our level and what we can do with this technology.
Sure. Thanks, Mpumelelo. That was quite an explanation that you went into the details. So I think that we have to go across to the Kemper in our midst. So Ed, over to you. How do you get rid of all the stuff that's invading your world?
Well, I hope we never discuss anything Mpumelelo knows something about, because we could be here forever. I think he wanted practical examples, so I thought I'd look for some. And my big interests are health and the environment. And as part of that, I belong to a group called the Health and Environment Public Engagement Group, which is all about the public engaging with academics to try and improve the quality of research so it's more practical. And one of the projects that we've been engaged on is a thing called SmartLine, which is a collaboration between the University of Exeter, Cornwall Council, and a housing association called Coastline, who provide social housing for people in a sort of ex-mining area, a very poor area of Cornwall. And it uses digital technology, smart technology, to monitor people's movement in their homes. And it also picks up, by using the Internet of Things and all that sort of stuff, details of temperature, of moisture, because in Cornwall it's a big problem. If you insulate homes, you get a massive damp problem because of, and mold builds up and you get health issues. And this project is an £8.8 million project. And I think so far they've collected 500 million pieces of data, but that's all accessible to small businesses. And they can plug into it to develop new tools around e-health and e-wellbeing. And one of my business contacts, he's a hypnotherapist. He's plugged into the project to develop a hypnobot. And it's an app where you have an interaction with a hypnotherapist without the hypnotherapist being there. And a lot of hypnotherapy isn't about putting you in a trance, it's about conversations. And a friend of mine trialed the app, and she suffers quite a lot from anxiety. And the great thing about the app was it was constantly available. She could do it in bite-sized chunks. She didn't have to book an hour's appointment with the hypnotherapist. She could just, if she was feeling anxious about something, she could have 10 minutes on the bot. Or if she was really anxious, she didn't have to have an appointment that got cut off after an hour. She could keep going for 2 hours. So I put the link to the SmartLine project in the chat so you can have a look at it. So that's using the Internet of Things data to help improve how people interact with the environment, how they interact with housing, and the whole thing is to improve the housing stock, improve how people live in the built environment. The other really interesting thing that I came across as practical, during lockdown, because I wasn't buying loads of coffee and cake at my favourite cafe, I wasn't picking up a Cornish pasty on the way home. And if you've never had a Cornish pasty, look it up, you've missed a huge treat. I was saving money. So I thought, well, actually, I can afford to use a bit on food. So I joined a subscription-based recipe box thing. And every week they send me a box full of goodies, and I just make the dishes. And it's a very new company, young people running it, and they're very open about what they do. And they held a webinar about how they use data to improve the user experience and also the business experience. Because what they want to do is to offer people exciting new recipes. They want to offer them choice, but they also want to know what's going on so that they can actually know what to order. So, for example, every week there's about 17 possible recipes. And if you've got, say, the 5-day subscription, they will suggest 5 recipes to you. Now, you can change those, but they don't really want you to change them, because if they know what you're going to buy, it's much easier for the supply chain. They haven't got to have too much stock. There's very little wastage. So they want to offer the choice without you making that choice necessarily. And they've developed this sort of machine learning thing whereby they've classified dishes by sort of meatiness and plantiness. So a steak on one end, a salad on the other. Gloopiness, so a sort of whether it's sort of a soup or whether it's a solid thing, all sorts of different things. And then they present to you what they think you will like. But the learning bit is that it looks at your choices and works out whether you're adventurous or not, on how adventurous you are. So for the adventurous person, they'll suggest some wacky ideas. And for the non-adventurous person, they'll only suggest things that are according to their normal taste. And that means very few people ever change. So the customer's getting the best experience, but they're actually managing to keep their ordering levels down, their wastage levels down, because they're gradually learning more and more about their customers, but they're also giving their customers a varied experience and a different experience for each customer. And it's really fascinating how they use the data to delight the customer. But actually, the back end of it is really seriously about driving costs down, driving waste down. They're a very ecological company. So I think that's a very practical example of machine learning, and an interesting one, because it's not about, I don't know, getting to the moon. It's just about me having a nice meal every single night and a great cooking experience. So I hope that helps.
Great, thanks, Ed. Yeah, it's interesting how the tech can be applied in different ways. So talking about tech, I'm wondering whether, firstly, Trevor Carty is a bat, because he always seems to be hanging upside down, and whether his head's actually changed into a global, I'm not too sure what's going on over there. So Trevor, you better talk to us.
Morning, all of you. What a beautiful morning it is. And I've really enjoyed these early morning runs so that I can get back and be challenged by you guys for the day. So I just want to quickly take 4IR and step back 3 steps to 1IR. And let's talk about South Africa. I mean, let's be realistic here. Back to basics in South Africa. We're talking about all sorts of nice things that the 13 of us on this podcast can enjoy. But we've got unemployment at record highs. We've got rural crises in healthcare. We've got township life, which is becoming unbearable. We've got education crisis. We've got massive challenges with job creation. So why don't we just look at 4IR from what I call the ground up, from the start being access. How do we just get access to just basic hardware and Wi-Fi/network for a lot of the communities that don't have anything? I mean, it's all lacquer well to go and take a beautiful virtual tour through my wonderful 30 million rand home. But that's in South Africa for the minority of people. And I think what we should be doing is working out how 4IR can be used for financial inclusion and economic inclusion. And if we can get that bit of the basics right, I want to share something with you, and I'm sure out of this group of wisdoms, I'm going to get an answer today. But I work very closely with one of the largest training companies in the country. They use a tax break called ETI to create students using corporate tax incentives. And we've got a hell of a footprint. We've got 32,000 students across South Africa in 175 campuses. Now, I don't know much, but I know distribution needs hands and feet. And so we have approached a number of service providers in the IT space, the Vodacoms, the MTNs, the Telcoms, to give us a special deal for our students so that we can give every one of these guys a tablet and we can give them some data. And I use the word give lightly. No one gives nothing away. It's just not the way it works. But give it to us at a cheaper price, or with an incentive, or we'll find a tax break for you, or a what, or a what, or a what. And we actually got MTN to give us a great package. They gave us for $200 an 8-inch tablet and 10 gigs of data, which now that's quite good value for money. If you just go and Google how much does 1 gig of data cost, you'll see it ranges from $13 to $149. And what we wanted to do is twofold. One, we wanted to start delivering our learning material to these learners online, so that they don't have to travel to our campuses in Bushbuckridge and Bundesleine and Namplogeli and these places. The problem there is that there isn't always reach and network. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was then for us to be able to teach them some sort of basic selling skills, and to put them into the economy somehow. And we did some work with the Old Mutual, and they have a program called Reward. And if you guys haven't registered for Reward, just do it. If you do learning and you learn financial literacy, Old Mutual pays you for every course that you finish. They put money in your account. Now that's quite lekker, because if you give these guys the tablet and the data, and we teach them where to log in and to go through the hoops, they then make money from learning. Now that's quite an interesting strategy. But we really want to use these 32,000 young people to help sell financial solutions, right through from wills to bank accounts to financial solutions like funeral plans and the like. And if any of you have a father, brother, sister, uncle, auntie who is in charge of an insurance company / funeral parlor / bank, we're looking for someone to now sponsor this $200. And in turn, we will give them distribution product rights for our students. So yeah, I'm not convinced any of my guys today will be digital printing a jawbone or a key to unlock the house. They are going to be battling to work out how they live hand to mouth today. So I love 4IR. I think it's got massive room, but I think we've got to go back to 1IR in SA.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Yeah, it's an interesting challenge, how to balance it, isn't it? So, Una, let's come across to you next.
Thank you, Ivan. I'm just thinking, while we're talking, I'm thinking about like going to our courts. I don't know if any of you ever had to go to the archives, to our courts, to try and get hold of an old file. Then you'll know that in some parts of our systems, we definitely still, I don't know, staying behind big time. So I'm just thinking about the possibilities if all of this can be integrated in our court system, in our municipalities, all those places where we have huge frustration. My question would just be, again, what do we do with the unemployment that comes as a result of that? So, yeah, it's interesting questions.
Thanks, Una. Yeah, and it certainly seems that we've got the virtual cats on the prowl this morning. So, yeah, got to work out how to deal with them somehow. But Jasper, I think we better get across to you next.
Morning. I don't have much to contribute. I'm just fascinated by all the CAT scans taking place there with Una and Stella and Trevor. So I can see an application there. So I'm really just learning from all of you, and appreciating where the conversation is going. For me, it was already a huge learning curve a couple of years ago to try and put some of what I would normally do in a physical conference, training people on a course, to now put it onto an online training program. For me, that was already like a huge step. So I've stopped there, but if I see what Lee's busy doing and what Mpumelelo was talking, and although it's not 4IR, but I like what Trevor is doing in terms of leveraging the one thing off the other. So I think it's an exciting time to live. It's great to have this technology around us. And I think, Ivan, you made the point. It's probably, although we now term it 4IR, it's really just an explosion of technological improvement. And the challenge is to almost go into this era with an open mind to say, how can I use it for what I'm currently doing to make myself more productive? And when you start thinking along those lines, I think a lot of these things will start to making sense. But then that thinking needs to be underpinned by understanding how to leverage of things, how to collaborate with things. So it's not just technology in itself, it's just technology. It's not going to do anything for you until you find a way to apply it. So that's all I can contribute today.
Yeah, thanks, Jasper. I couldn't agree more. You know, the danger is it becomes, I was going to say immersive, but immersive is the wrong word. It's probably submersive. So you sort of disappear under the weight of all this information and technology that's flying at you. And the key that you nailed there for me is you've got to find ways to become more productive, more effective, leveraging the technology, not be overwhelmed by the proliferation of what's actually happening out there. So yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Right, Cecile, let's get across to you next.
Okay, so I didn't actually think of anything how it can change my mind. It's very, very interesting. Well, I mean, my workspace. It's very interesting to hear what all of you are doing. I was just thinking, my brother-in-law's daughter is an audiologist, and she just told me a few weeks ago that the new technology that they have is you to have a hearing test, and I'm not even sure if you will actually have the physical hearing test. And once you've had the hearing test in the lab or whatever, they will work out for you what hearing aids you need. Then they will send you a thing and you'll do your own printing of your own hearing aids. Once you've printed them, then there's an app and you can actually set it on the app, you can set the hearing aids. So that's fantastic, but the danger therein lies that more people will be out of their jobs, their specialized jobs as it is right now. So that's the one thing. And then just the other experience that I want to share with you. My uncle is a farmer in Stutterheim, and a few months ago, he was attacked on his farm by thugs, 4 or 5 thugs that held them up with AK-47s and stuff like that. They finally, when they left him, luckily they left him alive. He managed to talk to all the people, other farmers in the area, and they all have drones. So with the drones, and it was night I think it was just becoming dark, but the drone could follow how these people were fleeing away, and it's through bushes and whatever, and it actually had the infrared on, so they ran away. But then at the same time they could also mobilize the farmers that these thugs were kind of moving through, and they actually caught all those thugs in one place in a big bush, and the drone could actually help them to catch those people. So yeah, so that's just mine. And then just going back to, I think it was probably 1IR, when in the earlier stages of Mensa, someone arranged for us to do a virtual. You go to the training place where they train there at Oliver Tambo, where they train the pilots. So I could fly Boeing 747 at that time. So you get into this place, and you know, it is so real that if you crash the plane, you actually get injured. You fall about and you actually get injured. That's how real that virtual reality thing is. I saw the other day that they are trained. There's now a private one as well, but at that stage, it was only, I think, SAA or whatever that were training their pilots, and all pilots had to go every 2 months or so, had to get into the virtual plane and learn, or just redo or hone their skills. Maybe after lockdown, all of them will need to do that because no one has flown anywhere. So yeah, but it's very interesting to hear how it's impacting your everyday workspace. I'm listening.
Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, it's interesting. So we better get across to Trevor now, because he's had a virtual reality experience, and I'll let him describe it to you if he feels up to it.
And that must have been in my younger days, because I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So you'll have to remind me in the chat facility.
The digital experience.
Oh, yes. Okay. But that's related to my daughter, because she actually develops programs for virtual reality. So I'm up to speed with what's going on in that particular industry and sector. But just listening to the discussion here takes me back to the original article that I brought up on discussion, and that was progress and profit, 2 peas in a pod. And as I'm listening to people here in this discussion, the concern from 3 or 4 people, and we haven't had Steve throw his concern in, but the break that comes across from people talking is, oh, what about all the poor people out there that actually can't get access to the new technology? And it throws into my mind that there are 2 types of vested interest. Vested interest of those that don't want the technology to come in to wipe out their industries. And here I talk about, I'd love to see an AI technology, blockchain technology that actually develops into a truth analyzer of some kind that can verify the truth around fact or fiction. And then that obviously goes a little bit into another one of my daughter's sectors here, and that's the legal profession. Sorry, Una. This is where it's going to lead to that if you can really get blockchain technology working, it could wipe out a large percentage of the legal sector, or they'd have to start thinking about how to actually generate income. And therein lies the vested interest for everybody. It's a pity that Trevor Carty is not there, but I hope he's listening. I would assume that someone like Trevor Carty is very much like myself. And I don't know whether altruism has now become his top line objective, but at the end of the day, I think we all want a return on the effort that we actually put in to developing and researching what we do. And that return on effort, I regard as profit. Therefore, I think that when you start listening to everybody about where they want to go and they want to get these things out to the masses, I would assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it is because people can recognize that there's a substantial profit for them if they can get this right. And I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I actually love that. I don't believe that individuals should be thinking about what about the poor people that don't get this technology. Just revere the individuals that are building this technology, go out there and test it and see what happens. Don't be blocked by what people think is the detrimental effect of that. Human intelligence, and there was a lovely comment up there, I think it was in Mpumalelo, AI versus HI. I think human intelligence will always outsmart artificial intelligence. And I'm willing to have a chess match on that with anyone, maybe with Steve Carter, because he seems to be the guy that's going to come back and smack me on my, whack on the side of the head for my comments here. But just, I want this truthometer to come out.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, what is the truth? Yeah, you talk about that. What about deep fake? Who knows? You got to work out where these things are all going. So Steve, yeah, it's over to you to wrap up again.
Unfortunately, Trevor left me in a position where I can only agree with him. There you go. There's the smack across the side of the head. Yeah, my current position is also that I think human intelligence will always outweigh artificial intelligence. So I think the one creates the other. I have no idea what that, I mean, that's not a statement necessarily that can last 1,000 years. We'll have to wait and see. This is not my area of expertise, and so I don't have much to share other than the questions that I bring to the 4IR space. And then as I start to investigate 5IR, you know, I do see things like the more technology we have available, often the further apart we are as human beings. And so I think there's a tension between looking at the detriments to things and looking at the positives, have some sort of cost benefit analysis going on in terms of what it brings and what it offers us. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to share in terms of that. I have 1,000 questions around whether this is going to be helpful in the end, how it actually promotes our human journey. Are we going to end up as machines with digital brains, and somehow we download what's left of our organic nature into that and live that out? What is 5IR going to bring? I already see, this is quite anecdotally and sort of quasi-qualitative from my own experience, and what I see online is that people are pushing back against the idea of digital interactions. And there's a trend emerging, I think, that will be foundational in the 5IR, which is the sort of socio-spiritual reformation, I think, that is going to be underneath this, where people actually want to be connected with people. You see it in the hipster culture and how they build small businesses, and it's local and it's connected and it's relational and it's narrative, and there's all that sort of stuff that goes with it. And so I think there's amazing things around technology. I think there's some terrible things around technology. But I've been happy to listen to the more expert voices speak to that. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I think this is a discussion that can probably go on for a long time, but we are fairly well over our time, so I think we'll wrap up there, Lee, and thoughts for tomorrow. I'm just going to pop a link into the chat box to a TED talk, which I think people might find interesting in terms of the progress made with prosthetics and technology. And Ed, especially for you, teach you how to dance with some false legs.
So I think, you know, what Steve's raised in this human intelligence versus or alongside artificial intelligence, I think is really a really good point of discussion. And I think what we may think that technology is going to be the answer, and it's going to take over who we are as humans. But I think what I would like us to focus on is, who are we as human beings that makes us more unique, more amazing than technology? So what is it about us as humans? What do we bring to the party? Whether that's in solving problems, whether that's in living life, along the lines of what Steve was talking about, you know, that we want something restored to us that is not technological, some kind of human connection. So what is it about us that is human, that makes us extraordinary, as opposed to we're just going to follow the technology, and the technology, as you say, we're just going to just suck our brain into the you know, it's the matrix, right? So let's be human tomorrow and find out what is the human experience that makes us amazing.
Great, thanks, Lee. So yeah, switch off all your digital tech, disassociate yourself, and rediscover your humanity before tomorrow morning. You're on the line as a human tomorrow. So have a good one, folks, and we'll see you in the morning. Go well.